Tonight on Local Life, John discusses the ins and outs of motocross with professional racer Rory Sullivan. Rory hopped on his first bike when he was 2 years old and never looked back. As he prepares for the Baja 1000 this year, Rory takes a little time to discuss the present and future of the Pacific Northwest motocross scene, and he educates John on the differing distances and races he enters. All that tonight on Local Life.
Rory, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you on.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So let's start way back when you're just a little guy. When did this whole motorcycle and dirt biking, like, where were you introduced to it? How did that come about?
My father, from as long as I can remember, he had motorcycles, in the garage, and there was always like trophies and things like that. So basically through him, and I think I was about 2.5 years old, and he got me my first motorcycle.
2.5, the first time you got on a bike?
Yeah, I think it had training wheels. I think there's a picture floating around somewhere, but
seriously?
Yeah, a little Yamaha Y Zinger, and slowly just kind of grabbed a hold of me and started racing and progressed from there.
So you did racing as a kid then too?
I think, on that little Yamaha, like maybe 1 or 2 races. Then there was maybe a few year gap, and I got a little bit bigger bike, and it really started to turn into like, let's go racing, Dad. So
were you competing and stuff then?
Yeah, absolutely. It really started racing and competing on an 80cc motorcycle.
Okay. And what's the difference?
Just the size of the motor gets bigger, and the bike turns out to be a bigger bike.
Okay.
Bigger wheels, and it moves on, 125, a 250, and then up to that size, the bike's the same. The motor just gets bigger.
Just the engine.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So when you were racing as a little guy, were you thinking that you would ever do this professionally and actually do this for a job?
I really don't think so. I think, it was just, it was exciting. It was fun. I started watching just videos and just, feeding off of it. And I think it grabbed a hold of me more than anything else. And next thing I knew, it was what I was doing every weekend. And here I am today.
Yeah. Well, what about the technical side of things and the actual mechanics of motorcycles? Was that just out of necessity, or did you have an interest in learning that as well? And do you contribute your success to your knowledge of that at all?
Actually, yeah. My father, he didn't always do a lot of the bike work for me. I think he kind of it was like sink or swim kind of thing. And at first he helped me out, and then he wanted to see how much I really wanted it. And that helped me out a lot, because I ended up doing in recent years a lot of racing that I'm the only one allowed to work on my bike. Multi-day races where I can only work on my bike and nobody can help. So those skills that I learned at a young age, they ended up helping me,
Absolutely.
nowadays. So.
Now, why is it that you're the only one that can work on
It's
your
not
bike?
in all racing types. It's just this one type of off-road racing that I got into. It's a 6-day event.
Is that the enduro?
It is an enduro, and you're tested on time, little segments of time. So you'll just go on a couple 100-mile ride, and then all of a sudden you'll come up to a checkpoint. There'll be a guy there, and you'll break a little beam, and it starts a clock, and you'll go for 6 miles or so as fast as you can, and then you'll break another beam. It stops the clock. And you'll do that throughout the day, and it adds up time. But also the whole goal is to try to get your bike to break down. They're testing man and machine for long distances. And so if you had somebody there to help you, it wouldn't be a true test of racing. And that's actually the Olympics of our sport, of off-road racing, is this international 6-day enduro. And so it tests the rider, tests the bike, their ability to fix the bike, and it's very exciting.
So you're actually judged in a sense then on your ability to...
Not so much judge, but since nobody else can work on your bike, you have to do it. So, if you can't keep it going, if it won't start the next morning when
you're not going to win.
Yeah, so that's how that works. And
all right.
So yeah, at a young age, I think that helped me where I am today, and yeah.
So when you were, and I want to get a little clearer picture here for not only for myself, but obviously for the viewers of how this all works. But when you went pro, how did you go pro? What makes the difference? You start getting sponsors, or?
So, on a local scene, pro is just a class, basically, You can say a professional athlete, right, makes money for what they're doing. That pro class does pay money when you go race it. How I progressed to that point was, you move up through the ranks. It's usually beginner, novice class, intermediate class, and then pro. And so back in 2001, I believe it was, I was racing intermediate, and I was locally at the top of that intermediate class. And it's really just the next step you go to. You got a little faster riders, a little more competition. And I made the step, and it was good. And it's what I really wanted to do at that point. And for a few years, it was all I was doing. I went on to work at a glass company for my father, and I was still racing all the time. I just wasn't, self-sufficient through racing. And now I'm back to that point. So that's usually how it progresses for a lot of kids.
Okay, all right. So in the intermediate, when you were in intermediate, you were or were not actually making money doing that?
No, you're not making money. You're getting a trophy.
Okay.
It's still exciting. It's good stuff. But when you get a paycheck at the end of the day for your hard work, you're doing what you love and you get money. Like, it's just a win. So it's not big money, especially at a local scene. It's basically your entry fee and all the other riders' entry fee go into a pot. So you're basically battling with your competitors. Some promoters of races put extra money into the pot.
Oh, all right. So when you say local, what's local? How big of an area?
I would say local, Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon, Idaho. And it's a pretty powerful scene right now. It's really booming, actually.
Okay. And you actually mentioned that the Northwest scene is pretty, I think you even said like healthy. Like the guys in, I don't know, are there girls in this too?
Yeah, there's a lot of, so like Northwest racing, there's a lot of classes.
Okay.
And you'll have everything from a little pee-wee bike, small little kids on there, young, 5 years old. Then you'll have older kids on those 80cc bikes I was talking about. Mm-hmm. And I'd say on a local race day, there'll be 20 classes, and there's a women's class. There's some very talented women out there right now. And the Northwest actually has a lot of them. So.
Really? But the men and the women don't race together?
They can.
They can?
And there's a few girls that actually come into, they race the intermediate class and stuff like that.
All right. So do these little guys, these kids that are
awesome.
racing, are any of them considered pro for their age and stuff?
No, they're not making money.
Okay.
It gets a little complex, right? On those classes on a national scene, they're getting sponsors. Some of these kids are very talented. They have Red Bull and things like that, and so I guess you could say they're making money, but it's more of just a support program.
So it's maybe helping offset the expense of their gear and bikes.
I mean, I think technically it's paid to their parents, but
Okay, and their parents are probably paying for that stuff anyway. So.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, good. Well, I want to talk to you about, when we come back from the break here, a bit more about the bikes, because I know there's like the 250cc and the 450cc bikes and the differences and what all that stuff means besides one being just more powerful. So keep discussing motocross when we return right here on Local Light.
Coming up,
there is, the more you kind of progress in your pro career, money coming into play. Where I'm at, it's very rare that I get paid to run a sponsor's product.